So what is going on YouTube? It's been quite a while since I've posted a video, and kind of the reason being is it seems like the videos we're getting kind of to be the same. I'm just sanding the car, doing body work and priming it and putting a video up. So I just kind of wanted to take a step back, do a couple recordings for a few days and just mash it together and see what we get. So this car was painted 2 or 3 times, and the sun really kicked its ass on the last paint job. I want to say they probably just used a base coat, clear coat paint job, maybe like Mako or something like that. But it looks like we have to finish the trunk. We got these doors. Hopefully there's not crazy amount of dents or anything in them. Most of the stuff is stripped off of it. Still has a weather strip or window felt on the back door, but we'll get that taken care of. So right here, I got it on a little bit faster speeds, and we're just gonna hit it with the DA. My DA, I'm running 80 grit sandpaper on it, and I'm trying to get, all the Mako paint job or whatever, the factory paint. We're getting this thing, to bare metal. We want to make sure that everything that's going on this car is legit stuff and good stuff. So it's getting epoxy primer followed by 2K and then paint. So as you can see here, the one side is cleaned up and this side is chunky and crusty and just nasty. So with everything stripped off, the trunk is looking really good. It looks actually pretty damn good. Thankfully, nothing is rusted or anything like that. Looking at it here, got the fenders cleaned up, doors cleaned up. It does look like there's a couple little dings on it. There's a ding on the trunk, but we'll get that all taken care of. Now what we got to do next is get it set up in epoxy primer and move on from there. So after getting the Matrix epoxy primer on there, we can definitely see that we do have a couple dings here and there on the car, which, yeah, it's perfect that this primer is on there because it's not only a sealer, but it also makes the dents and stuff really show up. So there was one on the trunk that I seen, actually more than one, but there's one good sized one, and then a couple on these doors that I seen. It won't be too hard to get them taken care of. We should be able to knock that out. But after the epoxy's on there, the car is starting to look totally so much more better than it did. I mean, now the thing don't look so rough anymore. One thing I really noticed that I have to address is this back filler panel. Neither side really fits the car. Now the front panel seems to fit fine without any issues, but this back one, man, it's like doesn't fit right at all. You can see the top doesn't fit, the sides don't fit. It doesn't matter if it's the passenger side or the driver's side. They both are kind of wonky as hell and not fitting correctly. So we're gonna have to look at this and straighten this out because this isn't acceptable for me. Hopefully anybody else that was doing the body wouldn't accept this either, but here we go. Okay, to be able to board sand this car and make it flat, take out all the dents, what I did is I bought 80 grit on a roll, and I have my two boards. One of the boards is like a plastic flexible one to get curves. I'm not sure how well it's going to be, and then we have the standard wooden one with an aluminum back and a rubber pad. That always works. But then we have our favorites. This is the DuraBlock, and these things curve to the car, flex to the car. This bad boy right here, be knocking out some dents. This little kit comes with a whole bunch of different sizes and shapes. I'm gonna have some links in the description if you're trying to get, this little kit or this long DuraBlock. But these are, These are what's going to make your day easier and make your life easier when you got to do body work on a car. So what I did here is I scuffed the primer with the blocks, and we're going to fill it, and then we're going to prime it again. Probably just spot prime it, scuff it, see how it is, and then we'll come back in and hit it with the 2K and see if we got all the dents out of it, if we're going to have to fill it again. But we're going to board this car and primer it more than likely 4 times. As you can see, we got some of the dents out of the trunk, but there's still a couple in there. We're going to have to definitely board this car out a couple times and primer it. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to wipe this thing down, get it all nice and clean, get all the dust off it, break out our 2K high build primer, and we're going to hit this bad boy with some gray primer 2K, first one. So looking at it after we get the first 2K primer on the whole car, the car looks really good. I mean, I still see a couple of things that have to be addressed here and there to make it perfect, but so far so good. I'm actually really happy with the car and the way it's coming out. Right now we just got to let it dry. We're going to board sand it again. This will be basically the first real board sanding of the primer, and we're going to see how flat we got this car and how many dents or ripples or anything are in it. Hopefully we got everything out, but you know, you never really can tell until you kind of do a guide coat and board it out. So with this primer, we don't necessarily need to do a guide coat, because once you prime it, it's like one color gray, and then once you sand it, it's like a totally different color gray. So here's the Durablocks, and I have some 150 on it this time to do the primer sanding. So since we're not actually sanding any filler and we're just going to sand primer, we're just going to stick with hitting it with 150. So here we go, and remember, you have to sand at a 45-degree angle with the car, and then you're going to want to sand in the opposite 90 degrees from that last 45 that you just did. So it'll be like kind of like sanding an X on the car, but you've got to keep the block level with the car. It's not too hard to do. You can mess it up, I guess, but it shouldn't be too bad. This long block, it's about 2 feet long, so it makes knocking out this hood pretty easy. I can go back and hit it with a smaller one on the edges. Oh, and believe me, it's hot out here today, and I'm sweating and having to change my mask constantly. This primer is really chalky and really dusty stuff, so you definitely want to make sure you have some sort of mask or respirator on when you do this. Now I'm going to go back at 45 degrees, the opposite direction, and we're going to get those X patterns on the hood. Let me speed this up and knock this out. Remember, this whole process, I have to prime the car and sand it like this 3 or 4 times before it's perfectly flat, so that I can paint this car black and not have any dents or dings or any waves or anything in it. I want it to be like showroom condition. So after I got the whole car sanded and we got it nice and flat. I went around and there was a couple of spots where maybe a little bit of metal was showing. I might have sanded through, and it's about to start to rain. So I kind of just hit it with some spray can on the spots that burned through. But so far, after the first, sanding, board sanding, the car is looking pretty good. There's a couple of spots, that we do have to address, but we'll prime this again. So here we go. We 2K primered it again for the second time, and everything's looking good. It doesn't look like there's really any dents on it. I'm sure that once we sand it, we're gonna find some mess ups here and there, but so far so good. So this is after the board sanding and priming number two. Um, we're doing some sanding here. I can still see a couple of low spots that we have. We didn't guide code it, but you can see that it's low. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And then up here in the top, it's still a little low. We gotta fix that. But this is what we're trying to avoid: is any imperfections in the paint, any little ripples. Right here, it's a little high, so we'll just have to come around and hit that again too. So after boarding it down and putting a little bit of filler on there, we were able to get some of the little dings out of here. Um, there was no major dents or anything on this car. It was all tiny little door dents on it. Easy fixes. As you can see, the front door is looking really good compared to the back door. The front door has had one more coat of primer than the back at this point. And you can see our hood is starting to look a little bit better. This spot was a little low next to a little bit of a high spot. So that's what you're dealing with sometimes. Like here is a low spot and a high spot. And I believe a lot of that has to do with the way that the hood was made and the metal framing underneath the hood. But so far, I'm really happy with it. All right, so here we go. We got the third coat of primer, or primered it the third time, the third day or whatever after sanding it. Um, the car is really looking sharp. Nothing really kind of standing out as being an issue, but I do definitely want to sand it one more time just to make sure that we 100% without a doubt in my mind is has no dents and it's perfect. It's flawless. That's what I'm looking for. It's flawless perfection. So with everything sanded down again for the third time, everything's looking really good. As you can see, there's no issues coming up on the hood. Everything seems to be pretty good. Right here, I forgot to do a little bit of body work on those holes. I'm gonna omit the whole panel on the front, but overlooking the car, I'm really, really happy with it. I think what I'm gonna do from here is we're gonna wet sand this down because this is at 150 right now. We'll wet sand it with 320, and then we'll get our first coat of color sprayed on the top half of the car. Because essentially on this car, the top is going to be silver and the bottom is going to be black, and then we're going to do the ghost patterns on top of the silver, so it'll stick out. Okay, so right here we're going to be wet sanding the car with 320, and as you can see with it being really smooth, that the sail panel is done, the roof is done. I have the hood and the front end of the car done. As you can see though, once it's sanded, it's really smooth like glass, and this is where you can see if you have any little ripples. Right now it does look like it has maybe a little something on there, but it's just the water that's beaded up on top of there. And then back here we haven't sanded yet, and you can see that it is beaded up. So what I do is I keep my sandpaper in a little bit of Dawn and some warm water, grab my skinny Durablock here, and I'm going to just sand it just the same fashion as if I was long blocking it and sanding out for dents. So after cleaning up the car, drying off the car, we masked it all up. We masked off the areas that we're not going to get paint on, because it is easier to mask it off than it is to sand it off later. So mask off what you can, what isn't going to be painted if you're doing something similar, and then got to get that final clean out. We'll wipe it down right before we paint it, hit it with tack cloth, and hopefully this will be perfect. So we have the base coat black down, and man, it looks good. Dents look flawless. It doesn't seem like I have any dents on the car at all, which I was hoping for. The black looks pretty good, and it's a good base and start for if you're going to do a flake paint job. Most paint jobs that are flake do have a black base. So I have the Matrix Color Blender MPB 500 right here. It's a clear base coat, basically. Mixes 1:1. And instead of using a ton of clear to get my desired flake effect, I'm going to use this base coat. So I have some 6 ounces, this is a little bit less, of 0.015 flakes. That was beautiful. I'll just start adding some. I'll add a little bit more. I have another 6 ounces. I still gotta reduce this, so it's looking pretty good. My metal flake paint. Oh, let's just put it all in there. She's a chunky monkey. Should I add another jar? Or maybe another jar? I think this will be fine because this is still going to get reduced down.
So I'm going to be spraying this out of a gun that I picked up on Amazon. It's got a 2.5 tip on there. It's specifically a flake gun. It's big, and I use it to do that high build primer. So this will work perfect. I'm using a Matrix hot reducer, MR0985. Not going to filter this, we're just going to pour it right in the gun.
If you're interested to see what this looks like sprayed out, hit that subscribe button, because I'll be putting up another video here soon. Maybe not the whole car because it's got a lot of work to do still, but we'll get like a teaser video or something so you can see what this looks like sprayed. I'm about to go in there and spray this bad boy, so see you later. Adios.